Greetings, greetings, greetings. Great afternoon, everyone. We apologize for the 4 minute delay, but we are here now. We are here now. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. As you know, I am Reverend Dr. Deleslin Kennebrew. I serve as the Administrative Secretary for the National Convocation and Associate General Minister for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. We will introduce ourselves and then we will go into the purpose for our conversation of today.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you this afternoon. I am Dr. Monique Crane Spells, currently serving as the Vice President for Mission Advocacy and Programs at Disciples Home Missions in the Christian Church in the United States and Canada, as well as Merger Staff, Christian Education Director. It's my joy to be with you. I'm currently here at Disciple Center in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I live not far from here.
Greetings, everyone. Reverend Derek L. Perkins, Sr. I currently serve as Director for Congregational Vitality for Disciples Home Mission of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada, and I'm also a merger staff. I hail from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm excited to be with you all today.
Greetings again. Thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation on today. As part of our roles within the whole life of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, we know that it is important, critical, if we will say that, to share our own stories, to share our own legacy, to share our own heritage for so many reasons, because we do need to be reminded of those who have gone on before us, of that great cloud of witnesses, of heroes and sheroes that have gone on before us and that continue to labor amongst us. And so we give God praise for that. So today we are here to have a conversation about three particular sheroes in honor of Black August. And I don't know if one of you all want to take it from here, but Perkins, did you want to? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what
Thank
is
you,
Black
Perkins.
August?
Thank
What
you,
is
sir.
Black August? Over these last few years, there's been a heightened awareness about the significance of political prisoners standing up for justice, commemorating people who have led movements over time and that are leading them today. It's a moment where we acknowledge just the work of justice in this world, the resistance and the rejection of evil and injustice across our world. And over these last few years, there's been this heightened awareness about the importance of not just merely celebrating the accomplishments of our people, but commemorating and remembering and understanding the pain that our folks lived with in the past and continue to live with today. And so back in 1979, there were some political prisoners who were being recognized in a prison in California, just acknowledging the significant work of those who were advocating for justice behind prison walls and out in the community. And this movement began to just take control over the minds and hearts of those of us who have suffered so much, who have fought for so much, and who unfortunately still fighting for everything today. And so
Wow.
Black August came about because throughout history, there were some significant events that took place in August. And people start thinking about, wow, so much took place in August. How about we set aside a moment to commemorate, to unite, to be called to action, to engage, because we're still living in a world where so much is still needed, right? And so when you think
Yeah.
about Black August, some of those historical things, the Haitian Revolution was in August, 1971. Nat Turner's Rebellion was in August 21st,
Wow.
1831, right? The Caribbean Emancipation Days, those were in August. The killing and murder of Michael Brown and the amplification of Black Lives Matter movement, the death of Emmett Till, the list goes on and on. The Watts Uprising, all of these significant events took place in the month of August. And the sad reality is we're still fighting those same fights today. They
Yeah.
may look different, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
the impact on our community is the same. And so communities across our nation are celebrating, not so much in terms of a joyous kind of thing, but commemorating and
Mm,
reflecting on what is it that we still need to do. That's
mm,
Black August, a month set aside to remind the whole world and to
yeah.
remind our own community that there's still yet a lot of work that needs to be done around equity and justice in this country.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Crane Spells, did you want to
Mhm.
add anything?
No, I came into an awareness of Black August through my congregation, um, a few years back, probably 4 years ago or so.
Mm,
And Dr. Winter Law, who often leads communion for us, and is the minister of congregational care at the gathering, would do these segments during the month of August around freedom fighters and incorporate the stories of those freedom fighters into the moment at the table, and making very appropriate parallel between the freedom fighters of our past, our ancestral past, and the freedom fighter that is Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth. I
mm,
mean, our entire Christian practice is based around a freedom fighter. And so I think it was appropriate that she brought it into that area of our formation as a congregation of faith. And from that, just always look forward to the time. I always learned something. I always heard about a freedom fighter that, I had never heard of before. And I consider myself an activist. I consider myself to be fairly well read and certainly passionate about history. But there are so many, as we were talking about before, untold stories or half told
yes.
stories,
Yes.
or just people that are forgotten, because we tend to latch on to big names. We tend to
Hmm.
latch on to names that have become or were prior to this administration acceptable to learn about, and not necessarily those who caught a case.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
know that, even though Malcolm and Martin caught case, but it's a different thing when you catch a case and you don't recover from it. That you don't get
Wow.
to go on living, or you don't get to go on in your freedom, or you live in exile. And so I think it's been, or the emotional bondage that, the life goes
Mm,
on, but you're still in pain. You're still
Mhm.
grieving
mm,
Mhm.
indefinitely. So
yeah.
I'm grateful for the learning that it's a little bit different than Black History Month, where we
Mhm.
celebrate our accomplishments and our heritage and inventors and all these
Yeah.
things. But um, everyone doesn't have celebridom,
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
So this is something different than that.
Agreed. Thank you both for the introduction to Black August, and we hope that you all will do your own research, even beyond this conversation. So now we are each going to share some information with you, share the story with you of a different shero. We did not realize that we had all picked women until we got the information and shared our information with one another. And so today, I will start off with Daisy Bates. Um, there's an African proverb that says, if you wish to move mountains tomorrow, you must start by lifting stones today. In
Mhm.
other words, little by little, your efforts will lead to big changes.
Yeah.
On November 11th, 1914, in the town of Huttig, Arkansas, a stone lifter was born. Her name was Daisy Lee Gatson at the time.
Mm,
Miss Daisy was adopted by friends of her father after her mother was killed because she resisted the advances of three white men who were trying to assault her, and her father left the county soon after. Her mother's death and other experiences she had as a child did not give her a favorable opinion about white people. Her adopted father did not want her to carry hatred in her heart and encourage her to do something about what she saw and how she felt. She decided to be a lifter of stones, believing that one day her efforts would contribute to moving the mountain of racial inequality and injustice and its impact on education, police brutality, free speech, and social injustice. In
Mm,
1941, she married Lucius Christopher Bates, also known as LC, an insurance salesman and a former journalist. And together they moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, and founded the Arkansas State Press paper, and they lifted stones together.
mm,
According to the National Park Service, at one time, it was the largest statewide African American owned paper. This paper focused on the need for social and economic improvements for the African American residents of the state and became known for its fearless reporting of acts of police brutality against African American soldiers from a nearby military base. As a public and highly vocal supporter of the programs of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also known as the NAACP, Mrs. Bates was described as having a dignified, almost regal presence who used her beauty, her femininity, her respectable self presentation, her intellect, and her passion to challenge prevailing stereotypes of African American women. She
mm,
was selected in 1952 to serve as the president of the state conference of the NAACP Arkansas branches. Now, when the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education declared racial segregation and public education unconstitutional in 1954, Bates used her newspaper to publicize the schools who did follow the federal mandate. Bates also led the NAACP's protests against the Little Rock School Board's plan for gradual integration of the public schools and pressed instead for immediate desegregation. In September 1957, Daisy Lee Gatson Bates carried a heavy stone during the Little Rock school desegregation crisis. And throughout the crisis, Bates served as a spokesperson for the NAACP's effort, a mentor to the Little Rock Nine, and
mm.
an advocate on behalf of those 9 African American students who first attended the formerly all white Central High School throughout their years there. Bates approved press releases, gave interviews to the press, drove the students to school, connected the students to lawyers, tutors, and to journalists. She coordinated with the national NAACP office and made speech after speech to regional and national audiences, raising funds and awareness each time she spoke. And Miss Bates was arrested. Her home was attacked. Rocks were thrown into her home. Bullet shells were sent to her by mail. The newspaper was put out of business during this time, but she refused to stop lifting stones. In 1962, she published her memoirs, The Long Shadow of Little Rock. Eventually, the book would win an American Book Award, and Bates was even invited to sit on the stage during the program at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. Due to a last minute change, Bates was invited to speak at the march. She went on to work for the Democratic National Party, and after her husband's death, she revived the newspaper during her retirement in 1984. She sold it in 1987, 88, and remained a consultant. Miss Daisy Lee Gatson Bates was the recipient of numerous awards and honors, and after her death in 1999, the state of Arkansas declared a state holiday in her honor. The same street she was scared to drive down in life was named
Mm,
in her honor in Little Rock, Arkansas. The
mm,
home where Bates and her husband lived for 32 years, leading meetings, writing articles, hosting other civil rights leaders, such as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., at 1207 West 28th Street in Little Rock, was
mm,
designated a National Historic Landmark. In 1999, she was posthumously awarded the Medal of Freedom. And just last year, 2024, the state of Arkansas gave a statue of Mrs. Daisy Lee Gatson Bates to the National Statuary Hall Collection in Washington, D.C.,
mm.
all because she was a lifter of stones. As I close, a notable quote from civil rights activist Daisy Bates says this: hate can destroy you. If you hate, make it count for something. Hate the humiliations we are living under in the South. Hate the discrimination that eats away at the soul of every Black man and woman. Hate the insults hurled at us. And then try to do something about it. Miss Daisy Lee Gatson Bates did something about it. She lifted stones, and her work continues to speak as we too must lift stones, knowing that our work together will keep moving the mountain of racial inequality and injustice. Miss Daisy Lee Gatson Bates, we salute you.
Amen. Ashe.
Thank you.
Ashe. I
You
enjoyed
wonderful.
it.
Thank you, Dr. Kennebrew. That was wonderful. And I learned things I did not know.
Yes.
There's so much information out there. So inspiring. Well, here we go with Mrs. Helen Louise Langdon Little, also known as Louise Little. Helen Louise Langdon Little. Love can break our hearts,
Mm,
and love can break our minds.
mm,
When your body is under attack and you live in relentless states of watchfulness, the holy birthright of wellness gets broken. The struggle for freedom is long and transgenerational, it's isolating, and it is systemic. It lives alongside love that is divine and the sacredness of human connection. Born to Edith Langdon in 1897 or thereabouts, there's speculation around the variance of her birth date, which is not uncommon of that time. Helen Louise Langdon Little was raised by her grandmother in a village of Grenada. She studied at an Anglican school and she spoke English and French and Creole. In 1918, at the age of 21, she came to Montreal and joined the movement. This
mm,
is where she met her husband, Earl Little, who was a Baptist minister and also an activist. They were both followers of Garvey. And so Louise was a reporter. And she wrote articles for the Negro Word, which was a newspaper there locally where they were living. And she was also a seamstress who made and sold her own clothing. Safety, as Pastor Little would get riled up and fight for justice, he would draw attention to himself and to them. And of course, the Klan was not happy, as many were not, and their safety was often in danger. And so they moved a few times. And in their moving, they found their way to Omaha, Nebraska. And the New York Times writes that in 1925, with three children at her skirt and the future Malcolm X in her belly, the Klansmen circled their home
mm,
that she had with Earl and her children and shattered the windows to scare them off so that they would get on out of town. And then only a few years later, in 1929, white supremacists burned that home down.
mm,
And 2 years later, Earl, her husband, was bludgeoned in the back of the head and run over by a streetcar. The insurance company, and some may have known this from the movie, the Malcolm X movie, the insurance company ruled that Earl's death was a suicide. And so they refused to
Mm.
pay out the death policy. I think it was around 10,000. Love can break our hearts,
yeah,
and love can break our minds.
yeah.
And when our bodies are under attack and we live in relentless states of watchfulness, the holy birthright of wellness gets broken.
Mm,
Louise Little was a single mother at that time after the death of her husband. She did go on to marry again, but she became a single mother and was robbed by racism, fighting to provide for all of her children by herself. It is no surprise that despair assaulted her mind, right alongside the Klan and the welfare workers and the social worker visits and the judges and the police. And so, for nearly a decade, Louise Little struggled to keep her children together. And the courts checking in on her as a result of taking help. So eventually she took help um, because she could not care for them all herself. So she received some support funds from the government. And as a result of support funds, the condition of taking those is that people can come visit your house. And so, as a result of visits to her home and judgments made about how she was giving caregiving for her children, and
Mm.
because of her activist history, those children were taken from her home and separated. The first
Mm,
child to be removed and sent to foster care was Malcolm X, who also is known as El Haj Malik El Shabazz. He was the first child taken from her and sent into foster care.
Mm.
So, for nearly a decade, Louise Little struggled to keep her children under one roof.
Mm.
And when they were separated, and she had to struggle with the mental health loss, the grief, the despair, um, landed her um, under arrest. I will call it under arrest. But she was put in a mental institution, and she was not permitted to leave for 25 years. 25 years she was institutionalized until the release into the care of her adult children. 2 years before Malcolm X was assassinated, she was able to reunite with him.
mm.
Only 2 years after 25 years was he able to reunite with his mother before
Wow.
he was taken. We don't know what happened to her mind even then.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
know that she lived to be 92 years old. And we do know that these are things that we don't talk about. We are starting to get to a place
Mm.
where we really address that freedom fighting is a costly endeavor. That
Mm.
freedom fighting is costly seed planting. That sometimes you're fighting for freedom that you yourself will not see in your lifetime, but it is for the children's children and the children's children. It is a costly love for humanity and for oneself. It is a belief in the right to live free as God intends. And Louise Little gave her all for freedom. She gave her body and she gave her mind. She gave her
Mm.
mind. And so
Mm.
while she was not in a maximum security prison that we find other political prisoners in, 25 years in a mental institution as a result of
Wow.
an assault on her
Mm.
living and on her livelihood, on her children, on her spouse, on her home. We acknowledge her as a freedom fighter, and we acknowledge her as her own person. Before she was the mother of
Mm.
Malcolm X, she was a freedom fighter,
Mhm.
and we acknowledge that here today.
Mm.
Thank
Thank you.
yeah.
Wow. Thank you all both for those wonderful memories
Mm,
of these great, amazing people.
mm,
Well, I have the privilege to present to some and maybe introduce to others Mammy Elizabeth Till Mobley.
Mm.
There's a quote that I was confused about when
Mm.
I read this because it was stated at one of the most horrific times in her life. With
Mm.
each day, I give thanks for the blessings of life,
mm,
the blessings of another day, and a chance to do something with it, something good,
mm,
something significant. No matter how small it might seem, I want to keep making a difference. And she said, God told me, I have taken one from you,
mm,
but I'm going to give you thousands. And
Mm.
so just my theology was disturbed a little bit by the quote, but it speaks to her tenacity of who she was, not just after the death of her son, but who she was from the beginning. Mammy Elizabeth Till Mobley was born to John and Alma Carthen. She was born on November 23rd, 1921, small town of Webb, Mississippi. She was
Mm.
in a community that many were running from. Her
Wow.
family, like so many other African American people, wanted to migrate to a better place in the country, hoping to find employment. But I would also argue and add they were rejecting racism, racial
Mm.
violence, racial codes of the South, white supremacy, and the dehumanization context of a cotton field, and working under the thumb of someone else. They were not just simply leaving just for better pastures because they found out, many found out, that those pastures were also challenging as well. But they were rejecting uh, who they have been made to believe they were versus
Mm.
who they knew God said they were. And so they moved to Illinois, near a suburb outside of Chicago, at the age of 2, Argo Summit, Illinois. And it is there where we learn about Mammy's brilliance as a young person before the death of her son, Emmett. We learned that she was the first in her high school to be on the A honor roll as an African American person. She
Oh, wow.
was recognized for her brilliance, but she was rejected for her skin color.
Mm.
That's an interesting kind of juxtaposition, to be honored for your brains and your brilliance, but to be rejected simply because of your skin color. So while she was in Chicago, away from the racial violence that her parents and others had experienced in Mississippi, she had a child. She married Lewis Hill, and she had little Emmett at the age of 19. And while she's in Illinois, she was married, and all of the celebration and acknowledgments of her brilliance was met with crises. Let me share
Mm.
a few of them with you. First of all, a divorce took place. Her
Mm.
husband joined the military and was stationed in Italy. Something happened while in the military that caused him to be hung by assassination, leaving her young son without his father. And then, what most mothers would do when you raise children, you want to connect them to your family of origin. She decided that it was a great idea that she would send her son to visit with family.
Mm.
This young man was excited, based upon the stories of his life, excited to go back and visit with family.
Wow.
And what was interesting about this excitement is that he's excited to go, but his mother is ready to give him what we would call today the talk. And this is not a talk about police brutality. This is a talk about how to manage oneself in a community where racial violence is common. She told him about how to greet people. She told him about places and things to stay away from, to follow signage about where he should drink from and what door he should enter. She gave him the talk about what it means to live in a place full of racial violence.
Mm.
So they are excited that her young son Emmett gets to go back home and visit with family, get to know his extended roots, his family of origin, understand who they are and how hard they work and what they had to overcome. And so he traveled in August of 1955 from Chicago to Money, Mississippi. And after that long history and that talk about what to expect, the unthinkable happened. An incident that history tells. Back in August 24, 1955, Emmett visits a grocery store, a meat market, Bryant's grocery store, I believe is the name. And inside this store, there's a young teller named Carolyn Bryant, who ultimately allegedly suggested that little Emmett whistled at her or said a few words to her. Even this little small act was seen as a violation against the racial codes that Miss Mobley warned her son about.
Mm.
And so 4 days later, after this visit to this grocery store, um, the teller's husband and brother comes to look for little Emmett. Now, this part breaks my heart every time I think about this. He was only 14 years old. Only 14. My son is 14 today, and I can't imagine a young kid having to experience what Emmett had to go through. We're told that they beat him, they robbed him from the home, shot him in his head, tied him up to a cotton gin fan,
Mm.
barbed wire, and threw this 14-year-old baby in a Tallahatchie River. And mom warned him about all of the possibilities that could occur. And so often we learn about Mamie Till Mobley from her response. She is the one who stood above the casket and screamed aloud with pain in our heart and our mind, and probably a little bit of conflict around God. How could this happen to my child? And she said, let the whole world see. And it is here where a new call was forced upon this amazing, brilliant young woman. She
Mm.
did several things that I think is significant for those of us who engage in justice work today. She insisted what society said couldn't be done. She said it must be done. Open the casket. Let
Yeah.
everybody see what they have
Yeah.
done to my child. Open the casket. So she's going against a social norm. Open up the casket, and I want the whole world to see what they did, in quote, to my baby. She wanted the world to fully know about racial violence and injustice in the South.
Mhm.
Over 100,000 people were present for this funeral. So she's empowering these people to stand up for what is just and what is right. She wrote letters to President Dwight D. Eisenhower,
Mm.
hoping that he would respond to what has taken place. She not only wanted justice for her child, but she learned that this behavior was happening all over the country, especially in the South. So she wanted justice not only for Emmett, but she wanted justice for everybody else's child.
Mhm.
Emmett Till's death served as a spark to kind of give a push to the civil rights movement. We don't often hear about her role and how it advanced the civil rights movement. We don't often hear about all of her speeches and the words that she shared across the country, speaking on behalf of NAACP. She was so significant that Rosa Parks said that one of the reasons she didn't get up is because she was thinking about.
Mm. Mm.
And the reason she knows the story of Emmett Till is because of Mamie Elizabeth uh, Till Mosley's courage and persistence. She mobilized the NAACP across the country. She inspired people like Dr. Martin Luther King to stay in the fight. She created an awareness that hadn't been created in the same way for many Black and Brown individuals fighting for hope, fighting for justice in their communities. And so there's this huge trial that's about to take place that were only deliberated on for 67 minutes to talk about those who murdered her son. This took place on September 1955. An all white jury acquitted the two white men after 67 minutes, let them go free. But in 1956, just a year later, those men confessed to the murder in a paid magazine interview. Safe from retrial due to double jeopardy was the verdict. And so they walked away free. Many of us would not have been able to handle that. Most mothers, most fathers, most godmothers, most godfathers, most people with a heart would not be able to pick up and go on. Well, Mamie decided more needs to be done. She began to write about her son, his story. She began to talk about the acquittal of the killers. She embarked upon speaking everywhere to get the word out. And she used a communication tool that was accessible to Black folks. She put pictures in the Jet magazine, and it went viral across the country. Not only is she speaking up, but remember, I said she was considered a brilliant woman before we knew anything about Emmett. She continued her education. She got her bachelor's in education and got her master's in administration from Loyola University with the goal of teaching Black people about civil rights, the experiences of the civil rights movement, and the ways in which Black and brown people had to overcome and endure throughout the South. She founded a group called the Emmett Till Players, a theater group for children to learn their history through theater, which performed everywhere. People learned about their history. You know, today our history is under attack, and we have to be creative about the ways in which we share it. She knew something then that it's important for our young people to understand their history and to do it in ways that were meaningful for them. She went on to do great things. Even when she passed away in January 6th of 2003 from heart failure, her legacy continued to live on. Her memoir was published posthumously, Death of Innocence, the story of the hate crime that changed America. It was published in 2003. So, what do we learn from Miss Mobley today? How to turn some pain into public protest. Now, that's not always, that's difficult because we shouldn't have to turn our pain into some level of public protest. How to use our voice, use what's at our disposal. Our own communication lines work then, and they will still work today. She taught us what it means to ignite a movement just by being open and vulnerable to telling the story. She ignited a movement. She taught us about activism. She knew how to get people to write letters. She knew how to get those letters where they needed to go. And she wanted people to understand that Emmett's death was not in vain. In her mind, God took one. That's what she thought. She believed that God may have allowed one to go, but God was going to give her thousands. That's problematic for some. But if you're going to make meaning of what occurred, sometimes making meaning is problematic, right? And so she believed that she was going to get thousands of more children that she was going to be able to rear and teach about their history. Generations will learn how to confront the evil that they face. Racial violence was a thing of that day, and racial violence is still a thing of our day. We salute Mamie Elizabeth Till Mobley for not only standing up for her son, but for speaking up for children all over the world. I don't think I could have done what this powerful woman had to do
Mm,
for the sake of our wider world. Yeah.
mm. Again,
Right.
Ashe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah.
Mm.
We that era, we're facing so much now, and we can never forget that even in the midst of the evil that confronts us today, it still is but a fraction
Yeah.
of what our ancestors were up against daily, daily. I was looking during the time of all the things that we've discussed, the Jim Crow, there were like 3,500 lynchings between 1887, 18 in the 1880s and 1965, 1967. And um, during those early years, it was illegal for us to, in the 1880s, to even show affection in public, to kiss the people we love in public. This disembodiment. That's why I love when you say she showed us the power of being vulnerable. I love that you mentioned her vulnerability, Reverend Perkins, because the moment that we stop feeling,
Yes. Yes.
slavery wins.
Mm,
Mm.
The,
Mm.
the moment that we
Mm.
stop, the moment we lay down our humanity to cynicism,
Mm-hmm.
to jadedness, to
Yes.
disembodied transactional interactions with one
Yes.
another, to
Yes.
expecting nothing from God or one another, the moment that we do that, slavery is won.
mhm,
But
Yes.
when we decide to feel and to
mm,
communicate how we feel,
mhm,
and trust that God in the universe gonna hope we're gonna get through it, we're gonna feel, but we're gonna feel. And you're gonna know that I feel. You're
Mm.
going to know. Then uh then we have this irrepressible love of God that continues to show itself in us and through us, and refuses to die. When we refuse to let love die, then this is what keeps us going. And so I'm encouraged by our vulnerability that's been showcased in these profiles. So I'm grateful for you both for that.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were speaking, Dr. Monique, I was thinking about I have a t-shirt that I believe I ordered it from my friend's t-shirt company, Carlton Mackey, and it says Black joy is revolutionary.
Yeah,
mm,
it is.
And every time I wear that shirt, Black joy is revolutionary.
Yes.
How I am reminded this the word already says the joy of the Lord is our strength.
Yeah.
And to think about these stories that we've shared today and so many others that you said earlier that are untold or mistold,
Mm,
um, I am grateful that our strength comes from
mm.
a deeper place
Yeah.
and that we can continue to love, as you mentioned, we can continue to have
Yes.
joy in God. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's as the old folks, that's the onlyest way. That's the onlyest way
Mm,
that we can keep the revolution going. That's the only way that
mm.
we can continue to fight, knowing, as you mentioned earlier, that freedom fighting is a costly endeavor. I
It's
love that.
costly. It's costly. It's costly.
so you all, I was just sitting here thinking
Mm.
about, yes, all that has occurred, but just how so much more we still yet have to do.
Say it.
Yes.
As we were thinking about
Yes.
today, and I was just reflecting on the
Mm-hmm.
individuals that we presented, and I was looking at pictures online just to see how history shared their
Mm,
faces and more.
mm,
I got angry.
Mm.
Here's why. Because the face of Emmett Till, if you Google the images, they have blurred the face of all of his images. And it just shows that America don't want to know its real truth.
mm-mm.
And that means our history is being washed away
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the way that if we don't tell our stories, and if
Yes.
we don't have our own hush harbors again,
Mm,
and if we don't find like the pastor, the preacher that Dr. Monique talked about, find a way to incorporate this
Mm-hmm.
into our worship experiences, whereby it
mm,
not only forms our history, but forms our faith and how we read sacred text
yes.
to be able to keep going. If we don't do
Mm.
this,
Yeah.
who will?
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
his face blurred out. I mean, come on now. I remember
Yeah.
in college writing research papers on him, and his face it was the truth. It showed the truth. And so we have so much to keep fighting for. I'm for the celebrations of Black history, nothing against any of that. But we got to find some balance, and that is to engage this work that we have been called. So I'm hoping that our talking about Black August is not simply to say, hey, look what we have overcome, but to remind us that we're still overcoming and that
Yeah.
there's still work to do. And
Mhm.
it's a burden for Black clergy. We carry
Mm,
something that no other clergy person on the planet carry. And that is the burden of carrying our stories and our history forward.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because I think that when you were talking about the blurring of the images, a lot of times when things are blurred out, not just that we don't want to see them, but there's often shame associated
Mhm.
when we blur things out, when we block things out. And I think one of the things that I want to say even in this moment that we cannot carry that shame because it was not us who did that. We cannot carry that shame. We don't need to carry that shame. We it
Listen.
it was not. Go ahead, Monique. You look like you're ready to say something.
Well, because I saw some, I can't take credit for it. I saw some on these internet streets a while back, and it says, and it was actually a European American person that said it, that why do we call slavery Black history? It's white history.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes,
The Black history preceded
yes,
the
yes.
transatlantic slave trade.
That part.
Black history is brilliance, it's ingenuity, and these are there is a Holocaust that exists in history and the colonial history of this country, that includes our living, but our history exists before, exists during, and is still existing and will always exist. But the reality is, you're right. I don't have to always say I don't need your dirt on my shoes.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Mhm.
I'm big on that, and so it's and that allows us to be more vulnerable. Actually, I think when you say
Mm,
I can talk about the pain, I can talk about the sorrow, I can talk about the grief, I can talk about the anger. Thank you for mentioning that, Derek. I can talk about even the theodicy, the theological challenges
yes.
of the evil,
Mhm.
and how it affects my faith and my understanding of God, and not be
Mhm.
ashamed because I didn't do this to me.
Right. Right. Right.
I didn't
And
do this to
even
me. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and even wrestling with the truth that I have to also ground my theology and my faith in God didn't do this to me.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's it.
That
Yeah. That's it.
God did not do this to me.
Yeah, say it again. One more time, please.
God did not do this. Where's the organ? To me.
Yes. Oh,
That,
listen, I think there's an app. I got an app. Listen, I think
but
there's an app.
that's the theological challenge we have.
But
It
we have to
So
say
is.
it though. We have
so
to
many
say
people,
it.
We
so
have to
many
say
people think it was all divine. No, it was evil.
it
No,
was
that
evil.
person was sinful and an evil individual,
Yes.
prideful, wanted more power than they deserved, and
Yes.
used it in a way that was harmful.
And still do.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And still do.
That's why we got to keep fighting, whatever
Yeah.
role we can play
We
as
have to fight.
individuals.
We have to scream. We have to pray. We have to praise. We have to organize. We have to advocate. We have to protest. Wear your t-shirt. Wear your sign. We have to run for office. We have to sit on committees. We have to do all of these things.
Mhm.
And it's
And
not
And,
an
it's a
either
and,
more
or.
yes.
yeah, and tell the truth of the gospel.
And
I mean, like, we do need to be calling the
yes.
brown skin immigrant
Yes.
Jesus of Nazareth,
Yes.
child of a teen mother,
Yes.
a freedom fighter. We need to be calling him that because
Yeah.
that's what he
Yes.
was, and that's what got him killed.
Yes.
We need to be
Yes.
saying that, and as a part of the whole gospel,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
you know. And
And that's
so
who he says he is.
he never listen. He tried to
That's who
tell us.
he says
That's what
he
he
is.
said.
This isn't an identity that we are projecting on him because we need to align ourselves with somebody that other people like.
Mm-mm.
This is who he says he is.
That's
He is
right.
our liberator. He
I
is our
came to set the
savior.
captive free. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And it always costs you something when you do what you've been called to do.
Well,
Always.
well, well.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
And
I
it,
don't
and
think
it
I will ever forget what you said, Dr. Monique, when you said she gave her body and
Her mind. Her mind. And her mind. Because we all know, listen, when
mm,
you love, there's love. Well, let
yeah.
me say there's like, there's lust, there's in love, and then there's love.
love. Yeah. Yeah.
And love is the way that God loves.
Yeah.
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 And
Agape.
when you love family
Yes.
in the best way you can love them, you're loving them as God has loved the church. That's how you know when you have more love to give for your family,
Mhm.
because you if you ain't loved them like that, despite everything, you still love them, then you ain't had God love for them yet. You need
Yes.
to push. You need to push a little further. And so when you love like that, your mind, when that love is assaulted, when mama or daddy leave, or child leave, or sibling leave, or grandmama, Lord have mercy, grandmama, I can't even talk about my grandma. When they leave,
Mm,
your mind.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is how we know that you are my disciples by the way we love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
That's what he
Amen.
says.
Amen.
And love. And I think I also want to just say, and it is not, I appreciate you just kind of filling out the depth of the love, because it's not the superficial
Mm.
love that as an escapism.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Th-
Because I love God, and because God loves me,
Mm.
we have to continue to tell these
We
stories.
have
Go
to
ahead,
find.
Perkins. I
Yes.
see you saying
Go
That
ahead.
something.
that that shallow love won't make you do what any of these people had to
Oh
do.
No,
no. Oh no.
no.
Oh no.
That stuff that's for your feeling on a Sunday morning, that won't replicate, that won't turn into this. It
Yeah.
it has to be
That will
that
not cut
love
it. Now you got that
knowing
right.
that
That
it's
was.
gonna cost you something.
Mm-hmm.
And it may
Woo!
cost you everything.
Mm-hmm.
I
Everything.
mean,
Mm-hmm. It's more than
even
Sunday school. It's more than
It's
Sunday
more
school.
than Sunday
yeah,
school. It's more than Sunday
yeah,
school. Yeah.
Mm.
yeah, that love costs you everything.
Mm, 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 mm.
See.
Lord of mercy.
Yeah. And so we are grateful for the blessings of another day to love, another day to fight,
Yeah, yeah.
another day to survive, another day to thrive, to flourish, to learn, to educate, to advocate, to protest, to speak truth to power. We are grateful for another day
Yeah.
to tell stories, to share stories, to share the gospel.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what this work is.
Yeah.
We are
yeah.
grateful. Thank you, Pastor
Yes.
Perkins. Thank you, Dr. Monique Crane Spells. Thank you. We invite all of you all to do all of the things. Do
Hmm.
all the things because it is all of our work. It is all of our work.
Yeah.
And share this video, share it with your friends, your family, share it with your church members, share it with your pastor, share it, share it as a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Share it as a way for you to learn and to share what you have learned. Share it, and know that by sharing it, you are spreading the love. You are spreading the love. Thank you all again for this conversation and for coordinating this space with all of us. We are all part of the National Convocation of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, in partnership with our merger staff, Pastor Derek Perkins, Reverend Dr. Monique Crane Spells, who also both serve as staff as Disciples Home Mission. So we honor that as well. So thank you all so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And thank you for the
Yeah.
idea, Derek.
Yes.
Thank you all for allowing me to share in this platform with both of you. Wow,
Ah,
this is amazing.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. God
Take
loves you
care.
all, and we do too.
Bye bye.